Okay, so I've been working from home over the past couple of years, and over that time, I've been through my fair share of desk setups, and I've tried a lot, and I mean a lot of desk accessories. And while some of them were totally worth it, some of them definitely weren't. And with pretty much anything, you're going to be able to find a plethora of options from super cheap to super expensive. And even though in most cases the cheap option will get the job done, sometimes spending just a little bit more now can save you a ton of frustration in the future. But especially if you're on a limited budget, it can be pretty hard to tell which ones are worth splurging on and which ones aren't. So in this video, I'm going to go over 10 premium desk setup upgrades that I think are actually worth spending some serious money on. Now, I've been accused of making people spend a lot of money, so I do want to preface this by saying that if you have a cheap version of any of these items and you're happy with it, keep using it. These are just some of the things that I've noticed really make the 10 to 12 hours a day that I spend here a much better experience. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's get into the list. So the first item on this list, and probably the most important, is to get yourself a good ergonomic chair. You only get one body, so it's important to take care of it. People say a lot of the time that it's a good idea to invest in the items that separate you from the ground, meaning shoes, mattress, chairs. And honestly, I just couldn't agree more. And if you guys spend anywhere near as much time as I do at your desk, then you're definitely gonna appreciate it too. And I think it's important also not just to get an expensive chair, but one that's actually ergonomic, meaning it's designed specifically to keep you supported while you're working at your desk. Like, there are a ton of really beautiful chairs out there, but not all of them are designed for you to sit at a desk for hours upon hours. Personally, my go-to is the Aeron from Herman Miller. I think it's got a timeless, beautiful design, and it's great ergonomically as well, but do your research and find a chair that works for you. So next, I think it's really worth it to invest in a good standing desk. Even though a good ergonomic chair is definitely going to help out with back pain a lot, and I definitely would prioritize that over a standing desk, getting a desk that can switch from sitting to standing at a push of a button is kind of a game changer. And I made a whole video about whether or not it's worth it to get a standing desk, which you should definitely check out if you're interested. But basically, the research shows that both sitting or standing for too long isn't really good for you. And it's the act of switching from sitting to standing or vice versa that makes these so good for you. Even though I'm only standing for maybe 10 minutes out of every hour, being able to break up those long sitting sessions without having to leave my desk has made a really big difference for me. So if you decide you want to pick one of these up, you might be a little bit confused because there's a lot of options out there with a really wide range of prices. And I would first advise you not to get one of those hand crank ones because they're just too much work and you're not going to want to do it. But the main difference between cheap and expensive standing desks are usually just the quality of the top. Like, more expensive ones usually have real wood and just more luxurious finishes, which I personally think should be of a lower priority for you. Like, if you have the budget, go for it, but more important in my opinion is stability. Like, especially when you get to standing heights, a lot of the cheaper desks out there will wobble like crazy. Even just the impact of your fingers on a keyboard typing will make your monitor shake, which I promise will drive you crazy very fast. But the better built ones are solid no matter the height, which is just a better experience for everybody involved. So this next item on the list, I think a lot of people tend to overlook, and that's lighting. Like, usually when it comes to lighting, people just think of it as like a binary kind of thing where it's like, is there light? Yep, okay, moving on. But once you really get into it, you realize there definitely is a spectrum, and a high quality, well-designed light source can make a huge difference in how comfortable it is to be at your desk. Your eyes don't like it when there's a large contrast of brightness, and if you think about it, your monitor is basically just one big light source, and if everything around it is dark, your eyes aren't going to be very happy. So the main thing I look out for when I'm lighting my desk is to have a light source behind the monitor so that the brightness gradient is relatively even in my whole field of view. And that really helps reduce eye strain over long periods of time. Personally, I'm a very big fan of the Philips Hue play bars for behind the monitor and the BenQ screen bar for lighting up the surface in front. Okay, so you may be seeing a little theme with these items being mainly centered around health. And this next item, the desk treadmill, fits right into that theme. One of the best things that you can do for your body is to exercise. And if you're like me and spend a lot of time at your desk and it's difficult to realistically reduce that, then the next best thing is to have a way for you to get moving while you're still there. And that's where the desk treadmill comes in. I got this a couple of weeks ago, and ever since I started using it, my daily step averages have gone up from 5,000 to 6,000 to over 11,000, so basically double. I kind of made a rule for myself that if I'm just going to be alone playing TFT or watching TV, I need to be walking while I'm doing it, which has turned something that I would consider basically to be a complete waste of time into only a semi-waste of time. And having this treadmill desk has allowed me to do that. Okay, so next on the list we have a desk pad. I think visually it does a lot to make it look like your keyboard and mouse have a home and aren't just hanging out in space. And it also just generally makes your setup look a lot more put together. But also it gives your mouse a good surface to track on and gives your hands a nice place to rest that's not as cold and hard as the desktop. And after trying a couple of the cheaper and more expensive options on the market, I feel like the main difference is that more expensive ones tend to have better finishes that feel more comfortable in the hands and usually offer better cushioning as well, just giving you a better overall experience. So I think another aspect of a good desk setup that a lot of people will tend to overlook is their walls. Putting up some cool artwork is a great way to express some personality and differentiate your setup from the millions of other ones out there. The ones I have on the wall here are some of the photos that I took throughout my travels, and if they look like something you'd be interested in, I'm selling these prints and other ones like them on my website at jchen.store. Picking one up would be a great way to spice up your setup and support the channel all in one go. But even if it's not mine, I would really encourage you to go out and find some artwork that you genuinely really like, and not just one of those stock photos from IKEA. And I may be a bit biased because this is something I'm really into, but every time I walk in here and look at these, they just put a little smile on my face. And if you find something that you like, I'm sure you'll feel the same way. Another thing that I like to have in all my setups is a good monitor arm. They may seem a bit excessive considering that monitors always come with a stand that does the function of holding up your monitor just fine, but monitor arms have a couple of distinct advantages. One is that they hardly take up any space on your desktop. Monitor stands usually need to balance the entire weight of the monitor by having a really big and bulky base so that it doesn't tip over easily, and as the monitor gets bigger, so does the stand, to the point that some of them will probably end up taking your entire desk up. Monitor arms, on the other hand, just use clamping force, so no matter how big the monitor you want to put on it, the mount only takes up a very small portion of your desk. They also give you a lot more flexibility on how you want to position the monitor. Most arms have a tension system that once you balance it correctly, the monitor should basically feel like it's floating and you should be able to maneuver it at will. And lastly, I think they just look a lot cleaner. It kind of makes it so that there's a lot less visual clutter on the desk, and it lets you have a kind of floating effect, which I really like. As far as cheap versus expensive here, the main difference is that more premium options out there are going to have a much more solid build, which means you can mount heavier monitors on them, and even if you don't, they'll be a lot more solid and won't wobble as much, which, trust me, gets old very fast. So I would really recommend getting the best one you can straight off the bat because they can last a really long time. Like the Ergotron HX, which is kind of the go-to for premium monitor arms, came out all the way back in 2016 and hasn't really seen any changes since then. And as you upgrade your monitor, you can just keep using the same arm. So I think it's really worth it just to invest a little bit more now. Okay, so next up, one of the items that I am most enthusiastic about on this list is a good keyboard. So mechanical keyboards have been getting really popular over the past couple of years, and it's one of those things that you can pretty much spend as much money as you want on. Like there are options for about $20 on Amazon and custom bespoke ones that can cost many thousands of dollars. And generally the difference just comes down to build quality. On the more premium boards, you're gonna see all metal builds, custom switches, custom keycaps, foam inside, gasket mounts, and all sorts of other things that can really drive the price up. And while there definitely is diminishing returns at work here, getting a good keyboard that feels and sounds good when you're typing can really make your time at your desk a lot more enjoyable. Like, I remember when I got my first mechanical keyboard, I genuinely was like hoping my teacher would assign us papers just so I could type more. And especially when it's one of the main touch points that you have at your desk, I think it makes sense to invest. And I know mechanical keyboards aren't for everybody. Like, the first thing that people usually say when they see these and they aren't in the know is, wow, so old school. So if you prefer something more modern, go with that. But the point I'm trying to make is that you should get something that is really well made and you're gonna enjoy. So kind of along the same lines, your mouse is one of those things that you're going to touch the most often while you're at your desk. And something like that where you're going to interact with it really often, it makes sense to get something nice. My favorite for a really long time has been the Logitech MX Master series of mice. And what I really like about them is that they're designed very ergonomically. Like, the shape fits perfectly into my hand and it's sculpted in a way that I feel like it was just made specifically for my hand. And I especially appreciated how there's a slight tilt because it puts your hand in a much more natural position. Like, if you've ever seen those vertical mice, this kind of gives similar benefits, just not as extreme. Again, don't feel like you need to get this one specifically, but I've been using these for years now and I love it. Okay, so lastly, and certainly not least, having a great pair of speakers can really elevate your desk setup. Personally, I really like to listen to music while I work, and having a good pair of speakers for that has been really game changing. And I know this is gonna sound a little bit crazy, but I legitimately feel like I enjoy listening to music more when it's out of a good pair of speakers. And again, like with a lot of the stuff on this list, there is an option for pretty much every price point. And there are also definitely diminishing returns as well. My tip though would be to look at things that are labeled as either studio monitors or bookshelf speakers rather than computer speakers. Because generally with those you just get a much better value for money as far as sound quality is concerned. And if you're just going to be using them at your computer and don't care as much about having features like Bluetooth and AirPlay and all that kind of stuff, I would say it's much better to get an older, more premium product than a newer one from a lower tier. Because engineers kind of figured out how to make speakers sound good a long time ago, and more modern speakers are really just adding more features and not necessarily better audio. But whichever route you decide to go, I definitely recommend getting yourself a good pair of speakers. Okay, so those were 10 premium desk setup upgrades that I think are worth spending your hard-earned money on. And I don't want you to feel like you have to spend a fortune in order to have a space that you enjoy being in and working at, but at the same time, I think having some of these upgrades is definitely a worthwhile investment. And especially if you work from home and spend as much time at your desk as I do, I think it's definitely worth it to invest to make it a space that you genuinely enjoy being in. So if you guys found any of this useful or interesting, definitely let me know in the comments. Again, prints are for sale on my website at jchen.store, but that's it for this one. Thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.